Mayor Brandon Johnson. He is saying there is an ICE-free zone, and he's also, to give you a sense of where his head is on these issues, this is Chicago Mayor Johnson on how he feels about the Trump administration. I mean, you just got to hear this to believe it. This is cut 6. Play it.
I've also said for the last couple of years that the extreme right in this country refused to accept the results of the Civil War. They have repeatedly called for a rematch. But in the coming weeks, we will use this opportunity to build greater resistance. Chicagoans are clear. Militarizing our troops in our city as justification to further escalate a war in Chicago will not be tolerated.
This is crazy. I mean, these are the words of somebody who is detached from reality. The extreme right. What does that have to do with anything? This is the federal government conducting its lawful duties of immigration enforcement. If it is not lawful, let's hear why. It is lawful. In fact, the lawlessness has been the Democrats in sanctuary cities for decades now, acting like federal law doesn't apply to them. Like somehow they get to operate separate from what the federal jurisdiction of this country actually is. The extreme right. I guess that means the Trump administration, which would mean a majority of the American people voted for it. So how is that extreme? How is it the extreme right? I need someone to explain that one to me. And also, as we see, moderates, independents, they've all been swinging toward Trump. So if anyone has a claim in this country right now to being more in the center, or rather encompassing more of the center, it would be the Trump MAGA movement. It would certainly not be the lunatic Democrats who think that they can create ICE-free zones for themselves. So, yeah, and the notion that somehow this is a refusal to accept the results of the Civil War, I mean, this is just inflammatory rhetoric. And I would remind everybody, this is why you have to have ICE officers in jurisdictions like Chicago operating with their faces covered, because the kind of words that are used by Democrats to oppose this incites violence, incites hatred of our law enforcement officers, and the doxing of them, the threats against them and their families. And Democrats know this. This is not some surprise. This is not some shock to them. They understand that all these things are happening. They want it to happen. They want the pressure on ICE officers. They want people to be afraid to actually conduct the mission assigned to them by the Trump White House. That's part of the way that they intend to oppose all of this, is create a climate of fear for law enforcement, which is why they support what's going on in not just Chicago, but Portland and other places. And that then brings me to the deployment to Portland. Caitlin Collins, formerly of the Daily Caller, now many years at CNN. Here she is with Caroline Levitt. I want you to enjoy this whole back and forth on the deployment of National Guard to Portland, and you can make your own determination as to who got the better end of this argument. Play 7.
A federal judge over the weekend that the president had appointed to the bench in his first term in office basically argued that he could not deploy other states' National Guards to Portland, basically said that it was untethered, his argument, to what is actually happening on the ground. Which local officials in Portland have said that the National Guard is needed there?
With all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as commander-in-chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And if you look at what has happened in Portland, Oregon, for more than 100 nights, I was talking to our law enforcement team about it this morning, for more than 100 days, night after night after night, the ICE facility has been really under siege by these anarchists outside. They have been disrespecting law enforcement. They've been inciting violence. We saw, again, a guillotine rolled out in front of this federal building. And so the president wants to ensure that our federal buildings and our assets are protected. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. And ultimately, in the case in Los Angeles, that judge ruled In the Ninth Circuit, that panel of judges ruled that those troops could remain and that the president was well within his authority to do so. So we are appealing that decision. As you know, we expect a hearing on it pretty quickly, and we're very confident in the president's legal authority to do this, and we're very confident we will win on the merits of the law.
What you have to remember, I think we all know how that went, whether it was a Caroline or a Caitlin victory. But what you have to remember with all of this is these judges and the Democrats and CNN, and it's all an outgrowth of they don't accept that Trump is the president. They recognize that, yes, technically he is the president, but they do not actually, in their own minds, accept that he is the president of the United States with the full powers vested therein by the people in a free and fair election. They deny it. They are in denial. I mean, this is the hashtag resistance mentality. No one uses hashtags anymore. I always thought they were annoying, so they don't say hashtag resistance. But it's the same idea. Not my president. That was the initial rallying cry of the left after the 2016 election. And I remember because I was in New York City and the marches were going past my window of my 300 square foot New York City palace. Not my president. That's what they were saying. They still refuse to believe that he is the president. And ultimately, that is their justification for what they do. Everything else is a facade. All the, but this judge says this or that judge said. They know they're going to be overturned. They know the Supreme Court's going to overrule them. But in their own minds, they justify these actions to slow and if possible, hobble the president's agenda by telling themselves he's illegitimate. He's illegitimate. Notice what they did in the first term. Oh, Russia, he's illegitimate. And now this time around, he's a fascist and a threat to democracy. It's all self-justifying. The argument shifts as it needs to based upon their emotional needs, and they have an emotional need to say that he's not the president. They don't buy it. They don't believe it. And anything that they can do to undermine that and to block his authority, even if it is temporary, they're willing to do. I give Trump a lot of credit for doing what he has done so far, which is, okay, I'll see you in court. All right, we'll work through this process, which they are very much using as a punishment against this administration, the punishment of taking time away. But at some point you have to ask, when does Trump just say, no, you aren't the president, random federal judge. You don't get to just overrule my authority on an executive matter that is plain letter law because you don't like me. Sorry. I'm going to keep going, and if the Supreme Court tells me I'm wrong, well, then maybe we can revisit this. When does that happen? You start to wonder at what point that becomes the obligation of the commander-in-chief to push forward until the court. Now, I know, the process, and everyone's going to kick and scream about this. At the same time, is the sabotage, the bad faith sabotage of the Trump administration by judges in Oregon, by judges in Illinois, and all over the country where there are Democrats and where there are Obama and Biden appointees to the bench. Look, there was a time when dinner was more than just a meal. It's when the family would come together for an hour or so. Was it like that at your home? It is in mine. And look, it's a challenge, but you got to get to it. It's so important to have dinner together as a family, and you want to have something delicious on the table. That's where this fall I want to remind you about Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers is calling America back to the dinner table. This is a company that connects our families with American ranchers and farmers raising cattle, chicken, pigs in the best ways that they can raise them. And this gives you access to delicious beef, chicken, and pork. I mean, the best, most delicious of all these kinds you're going to find. I actually just had steak dinner with Carrie at home a couple nights ago. You know what we were having? I had this Good Ranchers bone-in ribeye and then a couple of fillets. I like to do different kinds of meat. And so the filet and the bone-in ribeyes from Good Ranchers were just perfection. I seared them nicely. I like to go a little heavy on the salt. Carrie has me make this. It's pretty easy. You just throw a little butter in the pan afterwards, a little thyme, a little garlic. You make a kind of like a compound butter in real time with the heat. It's delicious. You pour that on your Good Ranchers, you're going to be in heaven. Go check out Good Ranchers, my friend. From now through Thanksgiving, Good Ranchers is encouraging families to sit down and share a meal every Thursday. Doesn't need to be fancy. It just has to be together. And here's the fun part. Every week, one lucky winner will get a free Thanksgiving ham just for sharing a photo of their gathering on their Instagram story, tagging at Good Ranchers, and using hashtag, I guess there are hashtags, back to the table. Visit goodranchers.com. Use my name, Buck, as your code when you subscribe for an additional $40 off your initial order, plus free meat for life. That's code BUCK for $40 off, plus free meat for life. Goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table.
Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And be sure to hit that like button.